Hey, thank you so much for letting me be here and giving me the opportunity to come speak to Parents Helping Parents. What a valuable organization. I've been able to speak for this organization a couple of times, so it's been really refreshing. And a lot of the feedback has been positive, which is great. Really appreciate that Derek has a job. So I'm excited about that. But no, it's awesome to be here. So tonight, talking about, excuse me, I've got a little bit of a tickle in my throat. So talking about healthy boundaries, which is probably one of the more challenging topics that I talk to families about on a regular basis because of the interpretation of what I tell them. Healthy boundaries is not abandoning your loved one. I have never advocated that you abandon your loved one. So there's a lot of controversy with that statement, with tough love being touted as a way to deal with your loved one who is struggling with alcohol or drug abuse, is that you have that very firm line. I'm not talking to you, I'm not going to love you, or I'm not going to show you any kind of support if you're using alcohol or drugs. So I don't believe in that. I've never once told a family member to abandon their loved one. So I just want to get that out of the way before someone says, Billy told me to abandon my loved one. That is not ever the case. What you can do, and we'll go over this here in a moment, is set up some real healthy boundaries in a couple of different categories that I've mapped out. But the other thing I want to say before I get to those categories is one thing that is probably the exception for me in this rule is physical violence. So if your physical safety is in jeopardy as a result of your loved one being addicted to drugs or alcohol, that's probably the situation where I would say we need to remove ourselves from that situation, because there's no violence is the variable that you cannot predict the outcome ever. And unfortunately, people that have this disease can be unpredictable if they're prone to violence. And so your safety is non-negotiable with me. So if in the past someone has ever said, Billy, I get thrown around every now and then by my loved one, I'm going to say, okay, now's the time for us to really leave and go from there and make some different decisions and safety plan that from there. But really, what I'd like to say is you get to support your loved one. I had a colleague a while ago that said, I really hate the word enabling. I hate enabling. Enabling is a lot like this. So back whenever I used to work for drug court a million years ago, there was a individual that would drive their loved one to a house that sold drugs, because their belief was, as long as I drive them there, they'll be safe. Not that they're giving them drugs or giving them money. They were just giving them a ride. And from their perspective, they were keeping them safe. So that is probably the closest thing to enabling that I could see in that situation. She was enabling the drug use in that. But you get to support your loved one. What does that mean? What does it mean to support your loved one? It means you get to tell them that you love them, that you call them every day if you want. Let them know how proud you are of them when they make good decisions and healthy decisions. Maybe redirect some of the bad decisions that they're making and say there are different choices out there. But we're never sitting in judgment of them. One of the things that I think parents on this side parents or even loved ones get really frustrated by is this desire for the progress of their loved one to be really, really fast. Like, okay, now that we've identified you've got a substance use disorder, you should probably stop. And when they don't, they get really frustrated, they get really disappointed, and kind of pushes them into that tough love mentality. And I want to encourage you to get with support groups that can encourage you and let you know that you're not by yourself in this situation, that there are other individuals and families that go through this all the time. And time is the biggest deal. This is the road to recovery is a journey, and there will be mistakes that happen along the way. This is a progress, not perfection journey, and we need to celebrate the progress. And again, it's all about support. So you get to support their healthy decisions. their desire to get well, and you get to let them know that you love them and that you get to be mom, dad, brother, sister, wife, husband. You get to be those people and not shut off that love and that support. But what we're not doing are some of the categories that I'm going to talk about tonight. And something else I'd like to point out is in all of these years that I've been doing this, I have yet to meet an alcoholic or someone that is addicted to drugs that was dumb. In fact, these are probably the smartest people I have ever met consistently, and I stand on that today. These people are super, super smart, and their potential is vast. So whenever I hear parents making appointments at recovery centers for their loved one who for some reason now can't use a phone or can't look up these resources, these are individuals that are capable of finding drugs and getting alcohol under the worst of conditions. So again, that's a boundary that we've got to set is, hey, I want to support you. I've heard of these things. You can go look it up yourself because I know you can and are capable, but I don't want you to ever underestimate how intelligent your loved one is because they are fully capable. Remember, they have been doing a lot of things for a long time, potentially in really, really bad situations. So I want you to remember that we're not dealing with dumb people. We're dealing with really, really smart people that are capable of making a phone call, setting an appointment for treatment, doing all of those things. So having said that, let's talk about some of the boundaries that are important for you to set. Healthy boundaries. I have a few categories here: physical, financial, emotional, and spiritual. So talking about the physical, if your loved one is actively using, right? The physical boundary that you would need to set if they're in your home is, I love you, but as long as you're active in your alcoholism or your addiction, this can't be a place where you stay because it's not safe for us and it's certainly not safe for you. I tell parents this and I tell family members this all of the time. If you are the parachute, they will continue to jump out the plane. And that is, as long as I've got a safe place to land or do what I do, I will constantly. There's no real consequence. There's no real accountability. But if I remove that physical comfort and say, hey, these are the boundaries that I'm setting because it's important that I create this safe space for the rest of the people that are in this home and me. And you're welcome to that when you're not actively using and or drinking. But in the time that you are, I've got to set a physical boundary. So sometimes I get this, well, you're going to have me kick them out and they're not going to be able to survive. And I'm sorry, that was my impression of Derek Talkington. I think I did a pretty good job. Go Pokes. That's not what I'm suggesting. So in that physical boundary that we're saying, this is no longer a place that you can stay. I will tell you this, that if you're hungry, I will bring you food to the door, right? But you don't get to come into this space because this is a safe and sober place. Now, once you start doing well, and I see that based not on what you say, but on what you do. Let's focus in on that for a moment. If I've been sober for 2 weeks and I tell you, hey, everything's awesome, I'm so great now, can I have $20? Your response should be, let's wait for 6 months. And if you still need that $20, we can certainly talk about it. But you've got to trust behavior over time, not what they're saying. So that kind of falls under an emotional boundary, but we can say it right now that we're not going to be emotionally hijacked by what appears to be a really quick turnaround, because this disease is, in the process of recovery, is lengthy. So going back, the physical boundary that we're setting is you're not going to live in this space, okay? Love you, support you, will continue to call you, but the physical boundary that I'm setting is that you can't live here while you're actively using and or drinking. Another boundary, which may seem obvious but maybe not, is the financial boundary. So we alluded to that a moment ago. If after 2 weeks of what appears to be sobriety, they ask you for money, should you give it to them? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You should not give them any money into their hands, not give them the card. You should not be putting money in their hands. It's too much of a temptation. okay? That after 2 weeks, after 3 months may not be something they're capable of handling on their own. There's so many times that I hear patients or clients talk about how money is a trigger. If I have it, I'm likely to fall into my impulsive behavior and go spend it. And if mom and dad are giving it to me, regardless of where I am in the stages, it could be too much of a temptation. So I want you to set a financial boundary. Don't give them money. With this can also fall into a property situation, a property boundary. You're not lending them your car. Please don't put yourself in that position where you're convinced that a person that has limited recovery, limited consistent behavior, that it's wise to let them have your car, your cell phone, really anything that could move them back into a position where they could be using again. So again, starting back, we want to set a financial boundary that's pretty strong. Okay. If they're asking for help paying for treatment, okay, you can go up there and pay for treatment, but money should never be given to them. Don't give them checks. None of those things. That's pretty unsafe for them. Now, talking about the emotional boundary, one thing that I see a lot of is parents that experience the guilt and shame of what they feel like they should be doing more of, or what they didn't do. And it all hits at once. And sometimes the client or the person that's in addiction is going to use that against you. You know, if you hadn't done this, that, or the other, I wouldn't be in this position. That kind of emotional hijacking happens pretty regularly. And I want to encourage you, that's why support groups are so important. So that you realize that you're not the only person that's been in this position, and set a strong emotional boundary. And you can absolutely, once they bring that to your attention, apologize and let them know, hey, I am sorry, that was certainly not my intent. And I will do my best going forward. And I will show you that through my behavior, because I can only say these words, but I'm going to reflect back what I need from you. Behavior, behavior, behavior. So I can apologize right then and there and keep moving forward. Now, the person that's in their addiction will escalate the emotional hijacking, right? Like, you did this, you called me that, you broke up a family, etc., right? Raising the stakes. And again, if you fall into that because you haven't set those strong emotional boundaries, you haven't put into place people to help reinforce what you're doing, trying to take a strong stand confidently, you could fall for it. That's why emotionally, when we talk about emotional boundary, setting it is important, not allowing your person, your loved one, to hijack you, and also making sure emotionally you're getting with people that support and encourage you. There are several groups around the metro that do this, do it well. There is a group that I want to comment on. It's called Finding Hope. They do an amazing job of bringing family members in together and supporting them. Absolutely bringing in other speakers to help teach them what are some of the good things to do and some of the healthy ways to manage your loved one that's in addiction. But I want to encourage, never cut yourself off from emotional support. And that's what I see a lot of, is families get ashamed. They fall into the stigma trap where they feel like if people were to find out, they're going to get made to feel a certain way or less than. And that is such a trick, and it's such a trap. I want to encourage you to get with people that will support and encourage you every time. And on a day that's not a rainbow, which we will have those days, when we're dealing with a loved one that has this kind of a disease, you need that support. You need someone to call. Handling it by yourself with only your own counsel, like you're only talking to you, is not a healthy thing to do emotionally. But a lot of us fall into that trap, and I see a lot of family members fall into that trap. So an emotional boundary to set, or an emotional standard to set for yourself, is to make sure you get adequate support. I want to encourage that every time. Now, here's this one's a little elusive, but this one's the spiritual boundary that you have to set. I've had this conversation. I've actually added this to my lecture of things to this lecture on healthy boundaries, because what I've recently discovered are individuals who are praying, and if you're, let's say traditionally Christian, you're praying for your loved one to immediately stop. And when they don't immediately stop using or drinking, do you get mad at God? This is a progressive journey. So there are milestones that we'll meet and reach. And also what the timing is critical. It doesn't always happen at once. In fact, I tell most people this is a gradual process and we need to watch it, because if we move too fast, it's not real. Generally, it's pretty superficial. So especially with spirituality, and when you're praying or really seeking that kind of counsel, understand that this will take some time, and God's timing, in my opinion, is perfect. And it will just take that kind of time for God to work and move. And don't be disappointed or discouraged when it doesn't happen immediately. This is a game of, I tell my patients this, or my clients this all the time, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And we've got to pace ourselves every time. So there's another healthy emotional boundary that I would encourage you to set, is that you've got to pace yourself. And remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint that will come up, which will end quickly. So spiritually, make sure you're aware of the boundaries and the expectations that this will take time. Also, I want you to be realistic. And that's a boundary. Be realistic. Have healthy expectations about this process, because this is progress, not perfection. Okay. Your loved one will make mistakes. Okay. This is not a go to treatment and they'll never have any problems again. And while those problems might not be alcohol or drug related, they could very well be emotional. They could be psychiatric. They could be any number of, they could be financial. There's a lot of behaviors that we discover exist and are problematic that we've got to organize and help them get well, even after they put down the drugs and alcohol. So I want to encourage all of you to have those healthy expectations, and let that be a boundary for yourself as well, that recognize that just because they didn't get it right in the first 30 days doesn't mean it's over and that you should give up on them. Boundaries, again, is not abandoning your loved one. It's letting them know that this is where the line is and all of my love exists right there, and I will support all of your healthy decisions. Well, that is largely all of my material.
So I kind of gave everybody a warning a few minutes ago to be ready with your questions. Now is the time that if you've got questions to ask Billy, this is our live Q&A. Comment those in the thread, ask those on Zoom. Don't miss this opportunity. Billy has most of the answers, not all of the answers.
This is only my perspective as a clinician having perspective. It's just mine.
So now is the time for live Q&A. If you've got questions, we'll have an awkward pause just for a moment or two while you get those queued up. So don't miss the opportunity.
No Jeopardy music?
I wish I need some.
I wonder if that's copyrighted. Like, would you get into trouble?
I mean, I'm sure that somebody's not going to care. I don't know why anybody would care.
You should just do it then. You're a rebel. Come on.
Boundaries, man.
Ah, very good. You were paying attention. Awesome. Derek exhibiting some boundaries.
So, can you talk more about emotional boundaries? How much interaction is too much when at a standstill?
And so if you explain the standstill a little bit more, I'm just going to read into that. Like, they're not making any movement, forward momentum on their recovery. Is that correct?
I'm assuming.
Okay. So if that's the case,
they're active. They're active in their addiction.
Yeah. So you're not standing still. Now, remember, you're continuing to love them, support them. They know your position, right? What we don't want, and what I see most patients react negatively to, is, oh, great, mom or dad is calling me again to tell me how disappointed they are in me using. Let's not do that. They already know this, right? If they ask you, you can always comment, but always comment up saying, you know how my position on your drug or alcohol use is I don't agree with it. If you'd like to talk about how we do something different, let's do that. But I just want to let you know that I love you, and I'm here to support any healthy decisions that you make. But remember, just because they're standing still, you don't stand still because they're not moving fast enough or moving even at all. You keep doing what you need to do. Okay. Otherwise, you'll work yourself into that position where you're frustrated by their lack of progress. We don't want to get there. Remember, this is their progress. You need to be who you are, love them where they're at, support them for healthy decisions. Great question. Really good question.
So as long as they're responsive, continue to communicate.
Yeah, of course. Right? Like, you don't stop calling, hey, it's my daily call to let you know that I love you. I'm praying for you. And I just want you to know that I'm here. Don't stop doing that. Yeah, there may be days where they don't answer the phone call or they don't pick up the text. Don't let that stop you in showing them your love and your support. Yeah.
Great. So other questions or comments for Billy? Don't miss out. I always click the close button right as the question's coming through. So if you've got a question, now's the time to ask that. If you've got a comment, now's the time to ask that.
Really good question though earlier that really speaks to me, because sometimes we have some expectations of our loved ones moving faster, wanting them to actually do something, and it gets frustrating for us. But remember, our jobs in this position is to support, love, care, the healthy decisions that they make. Okay.
Final call. I'm going to give it about a 30-second count in my head, just because we don't want to take up everyone's time if there's not any further questions. Now is the time. Get those questions typed in while I comment on Billy's beautiful bumblebee tie.
Oh, you like that tie?
Yeah, looks nice, man.
Thank you. Derek, you're always so nice to me.
I thought you were going to quit wearing ties at first.
I have days where I don't wear ties.
Yeah, that's disappointing. Slipping.
I'm slipping. I am. I need to wear ties every day.
All right. It does not look like there's any more questions for you, brother. So I am going to take.
I hate that I was this unpopular.
Sometimes there's lots of questions.
Okay.
You covered the material so beautifully that there is just nothing that needs to be asked.
Derek Talkington just complimented me, and it's on video, recorded for the ages.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you come back. We're going to be right here again 2 weeks from tonight on March the 16th with another guest, another live meeting. So thank you for joining us. We hope everybody has a great week and stays coronavirus free. Thanks, everybody.